Hello, this is Yaakov Kronenberg from Jerusalem, and tonight we're going to be starting a new series of 10-minute classes on the ascendant and the ruling planet. Tonight we'll be starting a series on the ascendant in Gemini. And the ruling planet of Gemini is Mercury. So we'll be looking at where Mercury falls in all the different houses, and like we said before, this gives you we're trying to teach you a basic methodology of how to learn astrology. And it's originally built, the basis, the spinal column of this structure is based on, first of all, the ascendant, and secondly, where the ruling planet in the chart falls. First of all, the ascendant tells you the basic nature of the person, and what his ruling planet, he or she, what their ruling planet is, and what type of nature that ruling planet is. And then we look at, and it tells you really what they want in the world. And then we look at which area in life they're going to try to fulfill these needs of the ascendant, their essential nature. Which area of life will they go towards to work, and that'll depend on where the Mercury is in the chart. In other words, since the Mercury is the ruling planet, it'll make a strong connection between the house it falls in and the first house, right? Because it rules the first house, so it connects the first house with the house of where it's found. For example, if you have a Gemini ascendant Mercury in the 10th, you're going to try to fulfill yourself through your job, through your career, profession. If it's in the 9th house, you'll be working to fulfill your Gemini nature, mercurial nature through 9th house affairs, religion, higher philosophy, travel, higher education, things like that. If it's in the 7th house, so they will try to fulfill your Gemini nature, your mercurial nature, right? Through partnerships, marriage, coming before the public. So that's what we're going to talk about the next couple weeks. And let's start tonight. Let's give you a general idea what Gemini is and what Mercury is. Right? Gemini is the third planet, the third constellation of the zodiac, and it's connected, therefore, with the third house in the chart of Adam Harishon. And the third house rules, among other things, it rules knowledge, right? It's the twins, what we call the Torah. That's the month where the Torah was given in Gemini, and the twins on one hand symbolize the Torah, the written Torah and the oral Torah, and so it's a house of learning, right? Mercury, then the basic nature of Mercury is to be the student, the learner, the knowledger, the person who seeks knowledge, the writer, right? The writer for the king. All of these are connected with Mercury, and with symbolized also by the third house. And so a person who has got this Gemini, let's say ascendant, he's going to be interested in all those things, writing, learning, communicating, right? Mercury rules in the general way, it rules a person's life from about the age of 5 to about 18. Which is the years where a person acquires all his learning, most of his learning, the major part of his learning, and where he's very inquisitive and wants to figure out things out. And so a person, again, who has Mercury has Gemini rising, they're going to be very interested in learning, communicating. Right, the Gemini is an air sign by nature. Air signs want to communicate, right? So he's a person with a Gemini, he or she, they're going to be communicators, right? They're always like, they love to talk, they love to communicate, they like to make connections between people. Right, that the third house, for example, can rules like among the different professions, or moves secretaries, people who answer telephones, people who who communicate by calling people to do stuff. It also rules, people who learn, people who study, people, all sorts of things like that. It rules agents, all sorts of agents who bring people together to make deals. That's also connected with the third house. Rules brothers and sisters. The third house is also connected with brothers and sisters, the siblings. A person who's got a strong Gemini is very, very connected with their siblings, with their relatives, with their neighborhood. The third house is the neighborhood. Right? It's the house before the fourth house, which is the home. And so the third house is the neighborhood, the community. Right? So the people with Gemini rising, they're very involved in their community. They're very involved with their brothers and sisters. They're very involved in... They're very involved in all sorts of things like this. And so again we said that the Gemini is an air sign, so they want to communicate. And it's a mutable sign, so they're always changing, right? So it's a mental sign. Right? Gemini rules Mercury, which is a mental planet. It's a human sign. Gemini is human, right? All the air signs are human, which is nice. That makes them very likable because their nature is human. Right? Now there's other constellations that are, animalistic. The Aries is the ram, and the Taurus is the bull, but the Gemini is the twins. So they're very, so they have a human face to them, and it makes them very, very popular, very likable, and it's mutable by nature. That's why it's symbolized by a double, by the twins. In others, they can be maddeningly difficult for them sometimes to make decisions. They have this ability to see all the different sides of a problem, right? That's why they're such good learners. And Mercury can see all the different sides of a problem. But when you see all the different sides of a problem, then sometimes it can be harder to come to a resolution. And so Mercury by its, Gemini by its nature is difficult sometimes to decide because it's mutable and it likes to do things in pairs. It don't always like to do one thing at a time. It can sometimes want to do two things at a time. For example, if it's in the house, if Gemini is in the career house, it means you have a tendency towards two professions. If it's in the house of marriage, maybe two marriage partners or something like that. All sorts of things like that. But again, it's a mercurial sign and a Gemini sign, and you have to look really how the two are connected. How is Mercury connected to the ascendants? Again, like we always say, when it's in a difficult house, it's unconnected to the ascendant. It'll be more difficult. Say if Mercury is in the 6th house, that would be sort of difficult, right? Because it would be in Scorpio, which is very intense type of sign, very emotional, going to the depths, which is not the Gemini. Gemini is more superficial, more putting things together. And again, in the 8th house, Mercury would be difficult. In Capricorn, right? The very serious Capricorn. And again, in the 12th house, it would be difficult. In Taurus, the very fixed bull, the Taurus, very fixed, silent type of sign, which would be difficult having the Mercury there. But we're going to go through all these different combinations, and we'll start that next week. And I thank everybody for listening. I hope they enjoyed the class.